The crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow that seemed to touch everyone but me. I stood in the corner of the ballroom, my back pressed against the wall as if I could somehow dissolve into the cream-colored wallpaper. The champagne in my glass had gone flat, much like my hopes for the evening. I hadn't wanted to come to this charity gala in the first place, but my roommate Liv had insisted. "You need to network, Emma," she'd said, thrusting the invitation at me. "My cousin can't go, and these tickets cost a fortune. You've been hiding since that disaster with Jason. It's been 6 months. 6 months since I'd discovered my fiancé had been leading a double life. 6 months of working double shifts at the upscale restaurant downtown to make rent after moving out of our shared apartment. 6 months of feeling invisible. And tonight I was quite literally invisible, despite the black dress I'd splurged on. Simple but elegant. Hugging what few curves I had, not a single person had approached me in the 2 hours I'd been here. Liv had disappeared with some hedge fund manager 30 minutes after arrival. I took another sip of warm champagne and winced. The ballroom of the Meridian Hotel hummed with conversation and laughter. The air thick with expensive perfume and the scent of money. Women dripped with diamonds, and men in tailored suits exchanged business cards along with practiced smiles. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. Everyone except me. A waiter passed by, and I placed my glass on his tray, ready to find Liv and tell her I was leaving. That's when I felt it. A shift in the atmosphere, like the air before a storm. The crowd near the entrance parted like the Red Sea. Conversation faltered for a brief moment before resuming at a higher, more excited pitch. I pushed myself up on my toes, curiosity momentarily overriding my desire to escape. A group of men had entered, all in impeccable suits, but it was the one at the center who commanded attention. Even from across the room I could sense his authority. Tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his midnight blue suit to perfection, he moved with the fluid grace of a predator. Dark hair, artfully tousled, framed a face that belonged on a Renaissance painting, all sharp angles and perfect symmetry. "That's Nathaniel Russo," whispered a woman standing nearby to her companion. "I didn't know he was back in the country." "Apparently he's been keeping a low profile," her friend replied. "They say he's taken over all of his father's businesses." The way she hesitated on the word businesses made my skin prickle. I didn't need any further explanation. Everyone in the city knew the Russo name, though it was rarely spoken above a whisper. I should leave. Now. But my feet refused to move as I watched him scan the room. He nodded at a few people, stopped briefly to shake hands with others, all while his entourage, 3 men whose bulky frames suggested they weren't selected for their conversational skills, maintained a careful perimeter around him. For a fleeting, absurd moment, I imagined those dark eyes finding me in my corner, but I quickly dismissed the thought. Men like Nathaniel Russo didn't notice women like me. They noticed the willowy models or sophisticated heiresses who were currently circling him like exquisite sharks. I finally managed to tear my gaze away and push off from the wall. Time to find Liv and escape this world where I so clearly didn't belong. I made it halfway across the ballroom when I collided with a server carrying a tray of hors d'oeuvres. The silver platter clattered to the marble floor, sending tiny pastries scattering. The crash seemed to echo throughout the entire room. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, dropping to my knees to help gather the ruined food. My cheeks burned as I felt dozens of eyes turn toward the commotion. This was exactly why I didn't belong here. In a world of grace and poise, I was all angles and missteps. The server muttered something under his breath as he scooped up the mess. I reached for a fallen pastry and found myself staring at a pair of immaculately polished Italian leather shoes. My gaze traveled upward. Perfectly tailored trousers, a jacket that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent, and finally, the face I'd been watching from across the room. Nathaniel Russo was even more striking up close. His eyes weren't just dark, they were bottomless, like looking into deep water. A hint of stubble shadowed his jaw, somehow making him look both dangerous and irresistible. "Are you all right?" His voice was deep, with the barest trace of an accent I couldn't place. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. One of his security men stepped forward, his hand extended toward me, but Nathaniel waved him back with a small gesture. Instead, he reached down himself, his hand enveloping mine as he pulled me effortlessly to my feet. His skin was warm, his grip firm, but gentle. A strange current seemed to pass between us, making my pulse jump erratically. Yes, I'm fine. Just clumsy. Sorry for the disruption. I finally found my voice, though it sounded breathless even to my own ears. His eyes held mine, and a slight smile curved his lips. No disruption at all. The server had finished cleaning up and disappeared, but Nathaniel hadn't released my hand. I became acutely aware that we were standing in the middle of the ballroom, with curious glances being cast our way. I gently tried to pull my hand back, but his grip tightened just enough to prevent me from escaping. "You haven't been enjoying yourself tonight?" he said. It wasn't a question. I blinked in surprise. "How would you know that?" Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, perhaps? I notice things. Like a beautiful woman standing alone all evening when she should be the center of attention. A startled laugh escaped me. "Now I know you have me confused with someone else." "I'm never confused about what I see." His gaze traveled slowly over my face, making me feel both exposed and strangely valued. "Dance with me." Again, not a question. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because—" I glanced around at the watching eyes, the whispers behind manicured hands. "People are staring. Let them." His smile deepened, revealing a dimple in his right cheek that somehow made him seem both more human and more dangerous. "Dance with me, Emma." The sound of my name on his lips sent a jolt through me. "How do you know my name?" Instead of answering, he placed his hand on the small of my back and guided me toward the dance floor. I should have resisted. I should have made an excuse and fled. But something in the gentle pressure of his hand, in the certainty with which he moved, made resistance seem impossible. The orchestra was playing something slow and melancholy. As we reached the center of the dance floor, he turned to face me, one hand still on my back, the other taking my hand in his. Around us, other couples moved to give us space. "I don't dance very well," I warned, as he drew me closer. "Just follow my lead." And somehow, I did. My usual awkwardness melted away as he guided me through the steps. His body was solid and warm against mine, his movements confident and sure. The scent of him, sandalwood and something darker, something uniquely him, filled my senses. "Are you going to tell me how you know my name?" I asked again, finding courage in the rhythm of our movement. His eyes met mine, and I had the unsettling feeling that he could see past every defense I'd ever built. "I make it my business to know things, Emma Wallace. 27 years old, graduated with honors in culinary arts. Currently working at Eloise's downtown, one of the finest restaurants in the city, though they don't appreciate your talents enough." A chill ran through me, despite the warmth of his body. "That's disturbing." "Is it? Or is it flattering to know that someone has taken an interest in you when so many others have failed to see your value?" Before I could formulate a response, he spun me out and then back into his arms, closer than before. My chest pressed against his, and I could feel the steady beat of his heart. "Why me?" I whispered, unable to look away from his face. "Why not you?" he countered, his voice equally soft. "You're different. Authentic. In a room full of facades, you're refreshingly real." The music swelled around us, but it seemed distant now, as if we were enclosed in our own bubble. His hand on my back pressed slightly firmer, possessively, drawing me impossibly closer. "After tonight," he said, his lips close to my ear, "everything changes for you, if you let it." Warning bells sounded in the back of my mind. This man was dangerous, not just because of who he was and what he might do, but because of how he made me feel. Seen. Significant. Desired. After months of invisibility, those feelings were more intoxicating than any champagne. "And if I don't want things to change?" I challenged, even as my body betrayed me, melting further into his. His smile was slow and confident. "You do. I can feel it." His hand slid from my back to my waist, his fingers splaying possessively. "Besides, it's already too late." The music ended, but he didn't release me. Around us, people were watching openly now, whispering behind their hands. I spotted Liv across the room, her eyes wide with shock. "I should go," I said, reality intruding on the strange spell he had cast. "Should you?" He finally loosened his hold, but kept his hand on my waist. Or should you stay and see what happens next? I opened my mouth to make an excuse, to retreat to safety, when a man in a dark suit approached, leaning close to Nathaniel's ear. Something in Nathaniel's expression changed, hardened, before he nodded once. He turned back to me, and for a moment, I thought I glimpsed regret in his eyes. It seems business requires my attention. But this isn't over, Emma. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. I'll have someone drive you home. That's not necessary. It wasn't an offer. His tone remained soft, but there was steel beneath it. He signaled to one of his men, who stepped forward. Franco will see you safely home. And Emma? He leaned closer, his lips brushing my ear. Lock your doors tonight. I'd hate for anything to happen to you before I see you again. With that cryptic warning, he pressed something into my hand, a small, heavy card, and then he was gone, moving through the crowd with his men flanking him. I looked down at what he'd given me, a business card, heavy stock, with just a phone number embossed in gold. Liev appeared at my side, breathless with excitement and concern. Emma? What the actual hell? Do you know who that was? I nodded slowly, my fingertips tracing the embossed number on the card. Nathaniel Russo. Not just Nathaniel Russo, the Nathaniel Russo. His family practically owns half the city. They say he's... She lowered her voice. Dangerous. I looked toward the door where he had disappeared, still feeling the ghost of his touch on my skin, the warmth of his breath on my ear. I know, I whispered, clutching the card tighter. And that was exactly what terrified me. Not just who he was, but the fact that despite everything I knew about him, everything I should fear, all I wanted was to see him again. As Liv continued to barrage me with questions, my gaze drifted to where Franco stood waiting, his expression impassive but watchful. The weight of Nathaniel's parting words settled over me like a cloak. Lock your doors tonight. What exactly had I stumbled into with one clumsy misstep and a single dance? The sleek black car glided through the night-draped city streets, its tinted windows separating me from the world outside. Franco, Nathaniel's man, hadn't spoken a word since helping me into the back seat of the luxury sedan. Liv had tried to insist on coming with me, but something in Franco's expressionless face had made her back down. She'd extracted a promise that I'd call her the moment I got home. It's just up here, I said, breaking the silence as we approached my apartment building. Nothing fancy. A renovated brownstone split into units, mine being the smallest on the 3rd floor. Franco's eyes met mine briefly in the rearview mirror, acknowledging my words with the slightest nod. As the car stopped, I expected him to simply let me out. But instead, he stepped out and opened my door, scanning the quiet street with practiced vigilance before offering me his hand. Thank you for the ride, I said, clutching my small purse where I'd tucked away Nathaniel's card. Mr. Russo asked me to see you to your door. His voice was surprisingly gentle for a man his size. I wanted to refuse, to maintain some small semblance of control over this bizarre evening, but the memory of Nathaniel's warning echoed in my mind. I nodded and led the way into the building. Franco followed me up the 3 flights of stairs, his footfalls nearly silent behind me. At my door, I turned, expecting him to leave, but he gestured for my keys. I need to check inside first. I blinked. Excuse me? Mr. Russo's instructions were clear. I need to make sure your apartment is secure before I leave. A chill ran down my spine. Why wouldn't it be secure? Franco's expression remained unchanged. It's just a precaution. Reluctantly, I handed over my keys. He entered first, moving through my small apartment with surprising efficiency, checking the bathroom, the bedroom, even opening my closet doors. Only then did he nod, apparently satisfied. Lock up behind me, he said, returning my keys. Don't open the door unless you know who's on the other side. He paused, then added, Mr. Russo will contact you soon. After he left, I triple-locked my door, my mind spinning. I leaned against the wall, trying to process the events of the evening. My phone buzzed. Liv, as promised, checking that I'd made it home. I reassured her I was fine, deflecting her questions with a promise to talk tomorrow. Alone in my apartment, I kicked off my heels and padded to the kitchen, pouring a glass of water with shaking hands. The business card sat on my counter, the gold number catching the light. What was I supposed to do with it? Call him? Wait for him to contact me? And why me? The question kept circling back. I was nobody. A line cook with dreams of my own restaurant someday, currently just trying to make ends meet after my ex had left me with nothing but debt and trust issues. Men like Nathaniel Russo didn't notice women like me, yet he had. Not just noticed, he'd sought me out, known my name, details about my life. The thought sent another shiver through me. This one not entirely from fear. I carried my water to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Nathaniel Russo was going about his business, whatever that entailed. The thought should have frightened me more than it did. Sleep proved elusive that night. Every creak of the old building, every distant car horn had me sitting up in bed, heart racing. When I finally drifted off near dawn, I dreamed of dark eyes and strong hands guiding me through an endless dance. Morning came with gray light, filtering through my blinds and the incessant beeping of my alarm. For a moment, I lay there, wondering if the previous night had been some elaborate fantasy. But the business card on my nightstand, I'd moved it there before bed, confirmed that it had all been real. I showered and dressed for work, trying to push thoughts of Nathaniel from my mind. It was Friday, which meant a busy day at Eloise's. The restaurant would be packed, and Chef Bernard would be in one of his moods. No time to dwell on enigmatic encounters with dangerous men. The day passed in a blur of orders and controlled chaos in the kitchen. I was plating a salmon dish when Madeline, one of the servers, appeared at my station, eyes wide. "Emma, there's someone asking for you. Out front." My hand faltered, nearly ruining the delicate arrangement of asparagus. "Asking for me? A customer?" She nodded, glancing over her shoulder. "He says his name is Nathaniel. No last name, but Emma. He's got 2 scary-looking guys with him, and he's sitting at table 9. Table 9, the best table in the house, always reserved weeks in advance for VIPs. "Tell him I'm working," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I can't just leave the line." Madeline bit her lip. "I already told him that. He said..." She lowered her voice. "He said he's happy to wait, but he'd prefer to see you now. And Emma, Chef already said it's fine. He practically fell all over himself when the guy asked." Chef Bernard, who screamed if a sous chef took an unauthorized bathroom break, had given me permission to leave the line during dinner service. My stomach twisted with a mixture of dread and anticipation. "Fine," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "I'll be right there." I took a moment to check my reflection in the polished surface of a steel refrigerator. My face was flushed from the kitchen heat, my hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing I could do about it now. Taking a deep breath, I pushed through the swinging doors into the dining room. The restaurant hummed with conversation and the clink of silverware against fine china. My eyes found table 9 immediately. Nathaniel sat facing the door, as if he'd been waiting for me to appear. Unlike his security, positioned at a nearby table, vigilant even as they pretended to dine. He was completely at ease, one hand resting on the white tablecloth beside a glass of red wine. He wore a charcoal suit today, the crisp white of his shirt a stark contrast against his tanned skin. When he saw me, his lips curved into that same confident smile I remembered from the night before. He didn't wave or call me over. He simply watched me approach, his gaze never leaving mine. "Mr. Russo," I said when I reached his table, conscious of the curious glances from nearby diners. "Madeline said you asked for me." "Nathaniel," he corrected, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Please sit down. I'm working. And I've already cleared it with your chef. Please, Emma. Just for a moment." Reluctantly, I slid into the chair, keeping my back straight, my hands folded in my lap. Up close, I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, the perfect symmetry of his features. "How did you sleep?" he asked, catching me off guard with the mundane question. "Fine," I lied. His smile told me he knew it was a lie. "No unexpected visitors? No disturbances?" I shook my head, unsettled by his questions. Why would there be? Instead of answering, he took a sip of his wine. "You look beautiful, even in chef's whites." The compliment caught me off guard, warming my cheeks. "Why are you here, Mr. Nathaniel?" "I wanted to see you again," Simple, direct, and to invite you to dinner tomorrow night. Dinner? I echoed stupidly. Yes, dinner. The meal people typically enjoy in the evening. I'd like to take you somewhere special. Despite everything, the warnings in my head, the whispers about who he was, the strange intensity of his interest, I felt a flutter of excitement. Why me? He leaned forward, his eyes intent on mine. I told you last night. You're different, Emma. Real. Do you know how rare that is in my world? I don't know anything about your world, I said carefully. Perhaps that's another reason. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against mine. Say yes. I should have said no. Every instinct for self-preservation screamed at me to decline, to extract myself from whatever game he was playing. But his touch sent electricity sparking through my veins, and the word that left my lips was, yes. His smile deepened, revealing that dangerous dimple. Good. I'll send a car for you at 7. He slid a small package across the table. Wear this. Before I could respond, he stood. I won't keep you from your work any longer. Until tomorrow, Emma. I remained seated, stunned, as he left the restaurant, his security falling into step around him. Only when he was gone did I look down at the package, a small black box tied with a simple silver ribbon. With trembling fingers, I untied it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, lay a necklace, a delicate silver chain supporting a single teardrop diamond that caught the light in hypnotic patterns. A small card underneath read simply, "To match your eyes, N." My breath caught. The necklace was exquisite, undoubtedly expensive, and accepting it would mean something, an acknowledgement of whatever was developing between us, a step into his world. Holy shit, Madeline whispered, appearing beside me. Is that real? I closed the box quickly. I have to get back to work. The rest of my shift passed in a daze. Chef Bernard didn't scold me for my absence from the line. In fact, he seemed almost deferential when I returned. I wondered exactly what Nathaniel had said to him. By the time I got home that night, exhaustion had settled deep in my bones, but sleep remained elusive. I took out the necklace again, letting the diamond catch the lamplight. To accept such a gift from a man I barely knew, a man with Nathaniel's reputation, seemed foolish at best, dangerous at worst, yet I couldn't bring myself to put it away. My phone rang, startling me. Unknown number. My heart jumped to my throat as I answered. Hello? Did you like it? Nathaniel's voice was low, intimate in the darkness of my apartment. I clutched the phone tighter. It's beautiful, but I can't accept something like this. Why not? Because it's too much, too expensive, too meaningful for someone you just met. He chuckled softly. It's a necklace, Emma, not a proposal. And it's nowhere near the value of what I intend to give you. A shiver ran through me. What does that mean? It means I see your potential, even if you don't yet. It means I want to know you better. It means tomorrow night is just the beginning. I swallowed hard. Beginning of what? That depends on you. His voice dropped lower. Are your doors locked, Emma? The abrupt change of subject caught me off guard. Yes, but... Good. Keep them that way. There was a pause, and I heard voices in the background. I have to go. Sweet dreams, Emma. The line went dead, leaving me staring at the phone, the necklace still clutched in my other hand. What was I getting myself into? Saturday dawned bright and clear, but my mind was anything but. I spent the day alternating between anticipation and anxiety, changing my outfit a dozen times before settling on a simple black dress, different from the one I'd worn to the gala, but equally understated. At 6:30, I finally relented and fastened the diamond necklace around my throat. The stone rested just at the hollow of my collarbone, cool against my skin. At precisely 7:00, my buzzer rang. I expected Franco, but when I opened the door, Nathaniel himself stood there, a bouquet of white roses in one hand. He wore a black suit, impeccably tailored, the jacket open to reveal a charcoal shirt underneath, no tie, the top buttons undone, offering a glimpse of tanned skin. His eyes traveled slowly from my face to the necklace, then lower, taking in the dress, before returning to meet my gaze. Something like satisfaction flickered in his expression. "Perfect," he murmured, stepping forward to hand me the roses. His scent enveloped me, that same intoxicating blend of sandalwood and something uniquely him. "You're stunning, Emma." "Thank you," I managed, taking the flowers. "I didn't expect you to come yourself." He smiled, the expression transforming his face from merely handsome to breathtaking. "For you, I make exceptions to many rules." As I put the roses in water, I was acutely aware of him moving around my small apartment, taking in the modest furnishings, the collection of cookbooks, the few personal photographs. "You live alone?" he observed. Not a question. "Yes." I hesitated, then added, "Since my ex and I split up." Something hardened in his expression. "The one who cheated on you." I stilled. "How did you know that?" "As I said, I make it my business to know things about people who interest me." He moved closer, his gaze intent. "He was a fool. Anyone who had you and didn't value it deserves to lose everything." The vehemence in his voice should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a thrill of dark pleasure through me. "Well, he's gone now." "Good." Nathaniel reached out, his fingers brushing against the diamond at my throat. "This suits you. Though nothing could enhance your beauty." His touch lingered, warm against my skin. I found myself leaning into it, drawn by some magnetic force I couldn't explain or resist. "We should go," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Before what?" His eyes darkened, his hand moving from the necklace to cup my cheek. "Before I change my mind about dinner," I admitted. His smile was slow, knowing. "We wouldn't want that, would we?" He stepped back, offering his arm. "Shall we?" Outside, a sleek black Bentley waited, Franco holding the door open. As we approached, I noticed another car behind it. More security, I realized. Nathaniel's hand rested possessively on the small of my back as he helped me into the Bentley's plush interior. As we pulled away from the curb, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would change everything. That by accepting his invitation, his gift, I was crossing a threshold from which there would be no return. And the most terrifying part was how much I wanted to see what waited on the other side. The restaurant wasn't in the city. We drove for nearly an hour, leaving the crowded streets behind for winding coastal roads. Nathaniel sat close beside me in the Bentley, his thigh occasionally brushing against mine when the car took a curve. Each casual touch sent sparks through me. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between us. "A special place," he replied, his eyes reflecting the passing headlights. "Somewhere private, where we won't be interrupted." The implications of his words hung in the air. Private. Alone. With him. "Are you nervous?" he asked, his voice low. "Should I be?" His lips curved into that now familiar smile. "Not with me, Emma. Never with me." Eventually, the car turned down a narrow lane bordered by ancient oak trees. Their branches formed a canopy overhead, dappling the moonlight. At the end of the drive stood a stunning cliffside villa, its white stone walls glowing against the night sky. Lights illuminated a terraced garden that appeared to spill right to the edge of the sea. "Is this yours?" I asked, unable to keep the awe from my voice as Franco opened the door for us. "One of my properties," Nathaniel said, helping me from the car. "I prefer it for special occasions." His hand returned to the small of my back, warm and possessive, as he guided me toward the entrance. The massive wooden doors swung open before we reached them, revealing a slender man in a black suit. "Good evening, Mr. Russo," he said, bowing slightly. "Everything is prepared as you requested." "Thank you, Joseph." Nathaniel's tone was cordial, but carried an unmistakable note of authority. We stepped into a soaring entryway, marble floors gleaming beneath a crystal chandelier. The villa was a perfect blend of old-world elegance and modern luxury, with arched doorways leading to glimpses of sumptuous rooms beyond. Joseph disappeared, and I realized we were now completely alone. No security visible, though I had no doubt they were nearby. "Come," Nathaniel said, taking my hand. "I want to show you something before dinner." He led me through the villa to a set of glass doors that opened onto a stone terrace. The night air was cool and salt-tinged, carrying the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below. The terrace had been transformed into a private dining paradise. A table set for two, surrounded by hundreds of candles and hurricane lamps that flickered in the gentle breeze. White roses, matching those he'd brought to my apartment, spilled from crystal vases. This is... Words failed me. Too much? He suggested. Watching my reaction carefully, I shook my head. Beautiful. Like something from a dream. His eyes softened as he looked at me. That's precisely what I wanted to give you tonight. A dream. He pulled out my chair, and I sat, still taking in the breathtaking setting. The table overlooked the ocean, the horizon a distant line where black sea met star-strewn sky. Joseph reappeared with a bottle of champagne, pouring 2 glasses before retreating silently. Nathaniel raised his glass. To new beginnings. I hesitated only briefly before touching my glass to his. To new beginnings. The champagne was exquisite, like liquid gold bubbling on my tongue. Nathaniel watched me over the rim of his glass, his eyes reflecting the candlelight. Tell me something you've never told anyone else, he said unexpectedly. The request caught me off guard. Why? Because I want to know you, Emma. Not the version of yourself that you show the world. The real you. I considered his request, taking another sip of champagne for courage. I sabotaged my ex-fiancé's application to culinary school, I admitted. We were both applying to the same prestigious program. There were only 2 spots available, and he'd been awful to me that week, criticizing my techniques, my ideas, so I may have accidentally spilled coffee on his application and then rewritten it with a few key errors. Nathaniel's eyebrows rose. And did he get in? No, but I did. He laughed then, a genuine sound of delight that transformed his face. Remind me never to cross you in the kitchen. Your turn, I said, emboldened by his reaction. Tell me something you've never told anyone. His smile faded slightly, his expression growing more contemplative. I never wanted to take over my father's business, he said after a moment. I wanted to study architecture. I designed this villa when I was 19. The confession surprised me. Why didn't you pursue it? Family obligations. His tone made it clear the subject was closed. We all make sacrifices for those we love, don't we? Before I could respond, Joseph returned with our first course. Delicate scallops nestled on beds of pureed cauliflower, garnished with microgreens and truffle oil. The presentation was exquisite, worthy of any Michelin-starred restaurant. Your chef is talented, I said after tasting the perfectly seared scallop. He should be. I hired him away from a 3-star restaurant in Paris. Nathaniel watched me appreciatively. Though I'd be interested in tasting your cooking sometime. The idea of cooking for him, for this man who could clearly afford the finest chefs in the world, made me nervous. I'm just a line cook. For now. His confidence in that statement was puzzling. But you dream of your own restaurant, don't you? I nodded, surprised again by how much he knew about me. Someday, when I can afford it. Dreams shouldn't wait for someday, Emma. The intensity of his gaze made me look away, out toward the darkness of the ocean. Not everyone has the luxury of making dreams reality whenever they want. Perhaps that could change for you. He reached across the table, his fingers tracing patterns on the back of my hand. If you allowed it. The implication was clear, and a mixture of emotions rolled through me. Temptation, wariness, excitement. I'm not looking for a benefactor, Nathaniel. And I'm not offering to be one. His fingers stilled against my skin. I'm offering much more than that. The meal continued with course after exquisite course, each more impressive than the last. Throughout dinner, our conversation flowed easily, punctuated by moments of charged silence. Nathaniel asked questions about my childhood, my ambitions, my favorite foods, seemingly mundane topics, yet he listened to my answers with such focused attention that I felt as though everything I said was fascinating to him. In turn, he shared carefully curated details about himself, his preference for Italian wines, his disdain for technology despite its usefulness, his collection of rare first editions. He spoke of traveling the world, but always returning to this coast, which he loved above all other places. What he didn't discuss was his business, his family beyond vague references, or the obvious wealth that surrounded him. Those subjects remained carefully cordoned off, and I didn't press. I already knew enough about the Russo name to understand there were questions better left unasked. After dessert, a deconstructed lemon tart that made me close my eyes in pleasure, Nathaniel stood and extended his hand. "Walk with me?" He led me down stone steps that wound from the terrace to a private beach cove below the villa. The sand was cool beneath my bare feet. I'd left my heels behind, and the moonlight cast everything in silver. The security team reappeared, maintaining a discreet distance as we walked along the shore. "Do they always follow you everywhere?" I asked, nodding toward the dark figures standing near the steps. "Always." He didn't seem bothered by their presence. "A necessary precaution in my position." "Because of your business?" I ventured carefully. Nathaniel stopped walking, turning to face me. The sea breeze ruffled his dark hair, and the moonlight carved shadows beneath his cheekbones. "Does it bother you? What you think you know about me?" I considered the question honestly. "I don't know what to think. I know what people say about your family, but I don't know what's true. And if it were all true?" His voice remained calm, but I sensed tension beneath the surface. "Would you be here with me now?" I should have said no. Any sane person would have. But standing there with him, the waves crashing nearby, the memory of his thoughtful questions and genuine laughter still fresh in my mind, I couldn't lie. "Yes, I think I would be." Something shifted in his expression. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. He stepped closer, one hand coming up to cup my cheek. "You continue to surprise me, Emma Wallace." His touch was gentle, but I could feel the leashed power in his hand. This man could break me if he wanted to. Physically, financially, emotionally. Yet something told me he wouldn't, at least not intentionally. "Is that good or bad?" I asked, breathless from his proximity. "Very, very good." His thumb brushed across my bottom lip. "May I kiss you, Emma?" The formal request, so at odds with his commanding presence, made my heart flutter. "Yes," I whispered. His lips met mine with surprising gentleness, a question rather than a demand. I responded instantly, my hands finding their way to his chest, feeling the solid warmth of him through the fine fabric of his shirt. The kiss deepened, his arm wrapping around my waist to pull me flush against him. I was lost in the sensation, the taste of him, when a sharp noise, a car door slamming somewhere above us, broke the spell. Nathaniel pulled away slightly, his breathing as uneven as my own, but his eyes immediately scanning our surroundings. One of his security men was approaching rapidly. "Sir, there's a situation that requires your attention." Nathaniel's expression hardened instantly, the tenderness I'd glimpsed vanishing behind a mask of cold authority. "Take Ms. Wallace back to the villa." "I'll join her shortly." "Nathaniel?" I questioned, suddenly uneasy. He turned back to me, his features softening slightly. "It's nothing for you to worry about. Business that can't wait, unfortunately. Go with Franco. He'll see that you're comfortable until I return." Before I could protest, he pressed a swift, hard kiss to my lips, and then was striding away, already pulling a phone from his pocket. Franco materialized at my side, respectfully offering his arm to escort me back up the cliff path. In the villa, Joseph served me another glass of champagne in a luxurious sitting room, then discreetly withdrew. I sank into a plush sofa, my mind replaying the kiss, the abrupt interruption, the immediate change in Nathaniel's demeanor. What kind of business demanded his attention at this hour, on a Saturday night? I knew the answer, or at least I thought I did. The Russo family didn't make their fortune through legal enterprises, if even half the rumors were true. I wandered the room, champagne in hand, examining the artwork on the walls, original pieces, I was certain, by masters I recognized. On a side table sat a collection of framed photographs. Curious, I moved closer. Most showed a younger Nathaniel, with an older man who shared his strong jawline and penetrating gaze. His father, I presumed. In one, they stood on the very terrace where we'd dined tonight, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling. Another photo caught my attention. Nathaniel, perhaps in his early 20s, with his arm around a beautiful dark-haired woman. They were dressed formally, her in a stunning red gown, him in a tuxedo. The way they looked at each other spoke of intimacy, of history. An unexpected pang of jealousy shot through me. Who was she? An ex-girlfriend? Someone still in his life? My sister, Sophia. I jumped, nearly spilling my champagne. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, watching me with an unreadable expression. I'm sorry, I said quickly. I didn't mean to pry. He crossed the room to stand beside me, picking up the photograph. No need to apologize. This was taken at her engagement party, 5 years ago. A shadow crossed his face. She lives in Milan now, with her husband and their son. You miss her, I observed, hearing the wistfulness in his tone. Every day. He set the photo down carefully. She's the only family I have left. And your father? I asked softly, nodding toward the other photographs. Nathaniel's expression closed off. Passed away 3 years ago. Heart attack. He took the champagne flute from my hand, setting it aside before capturing my fingers in his. But I didn't come back to discuss my family. I came to apologize for the interruption. Is everything okay? I ventured. Your business is handled. His tone made it clear the subject was closed. And now I can focus on what's truly important tonight. His eyes traveled over me possessively. You. The intensity of his gaze made me shiver. It's getting late, I said, though I made no move to pull my hand from his. Perhaps you should have Franco drive me home. Stay. The single word hung between us, fraught with meaning. Nathaniel. Not for that, he clarified, though the heat in his eyes suggested that wasn't far from his mind. It's a long drive back to the city, and it's already past midnight. Stay here. The villa has 6 bedrooms. You can have whichever one you choose. The offer was tempting. The thought of returning to my small apartment after this night of luxury and moonlit kisses held little appeal. And yet, I don't have anything with me. No change of clothes, no toothbrush. His smile was confident, as if he'd expected this objection. The master suite has a dressing room fully stocked with everything you might need. I keep it prepared for unexpected stays. The implication that other women had unexpectedly stayed here sent another jolt of jealousy through me. Nathaniel must have read it in my expression, because he pulled me closer, his free hand tilting my chin up. Don't misunderstand me, Emma. I've never brought anyone else here. This place is private. Special. His thumb traced my jawline, like what's happening between us. I searched his face for signs of deception, but found only sincerity, and that now familiar intensity that made my pulse quicken. One night, I conceded. His smile was triumphant. I'll show you to your room. He led me through the villa to a wing I hadn't seen before, eventually opening double doors to reveal a stunning suite. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in crisp white linens. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the moonlit ocean, and a fireplace crackled with welcoming flames. This is the master bedroom, I realized aloud. The best room in the house, he confirmed. Nothing but the best for you, Emma. He showed me the adjoining dressing room, where clothing in various sizes hung in perfect order, and the marble bathroom with its sunken tub and shower large enough for several people. Everything you need should be here, he said, leaning against the doorframe as I explored the space. If not, just call for Joseph. I turned to face him, suddenly aware that we were alone in his bedroom, the massive bed just feet away. And where will you sleep? There are other bedrooms, he said, though his eyes told a different story. Unless you'd prefer I stayed. My face flushed at his directness. I think separate rooms would be best. For tonight. For tonight, he repeated, a promise in the words. He pushed off from the doorframe and approached me slowly, like a predator stalking prey. But his touch, when he reached me, was gentle, his fingers skating along my bare shoulder, up my neck to cradle my face. Sweet dreams, Emma. His kiss was brief but intense, leaving me breathless when he pulled away. At the door, he paused, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Lock this behind me, he instructed, his tone suddenly serious. Don't open it for anyone but me. The second reminder about locked doors in as many days. Are you expecting trouble? Something flickered in his eyes. No. But in my world, it pays to be cautious. After he left, I did as he asked, turning the heavy lock with a decisive click. Alone in his bedroom, surrounded by luxury that spoke of unimaginable wealth, I finally allowed myself to consider exactly what I was doing. I was in the home, one of many, apparently, of Nathaniel Russo, a man whose family name was whispered with equal parts fear and respect throughout the city, a man who traveled with armed security, who received urgent business calls late at night, who spoke of caution and locked doors. A man who kissed me like I was essential to his existence, who looked at me like I was precious, who treated me with a care and attention I'd never experienced before. As I slipped between sheets that probably cost more than a month of my rent, wearing a silk nightgown I'd found in the dressing room, I knew I should be more afraid than I was. Instead, I felt an intoxicating mix of excitement and anticipation. Whatever Nathaniel Russo was, whatever dangerous world he inhabited, I was already being drawn into its orbit. And the most terrifying part was that I wanted to be there, wanted to be near him, regardless of the consequences. Sleep came surprisingly easily, the sound of distant waves lulling me into dreams of dark eyes and gentle hands and a life very different from the one I'd always known. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close, and the distant cry of seagulls. For a moment, I lay disoriented in the massive bed, the unfamiliar luxury surrounding me. Then memories of the previous night came flooding back. The candlelit dinner, the moonlit beach, Nathaniel's kiss. The diamond necklace still rested against my throat. I hadn't taken it off before sleeping. My fingers touched it absently as I sat up, taking in the room in daylight. It was even more impressive than it had seemed last night, spacious and elegant, with views of the ocean stretching to the horizon. A soft knock at the door made me start. "Emma?" Nathaniel's voice, low and measured. "Are you awake?" I pulled the silk sheets higher, suddenly conscious of wearing only the borrowed nightgown. "Yes." "Just a moment." In the dressing room, I found a simple white robe hanging beside the nightgowns and slipped it on before unlocking the door. Nathaniel stood in the hallway, dressed casually in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating than in his suits, though no less handsome. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently showered. "Good morning," he said, his eyes moving appreciatively over me in a way that made heat rise to my cheeks. "I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in months," I admitted. It was true. The bed had been like sleeping on a cloud, and for once no anxieties had plagued my dreams. "I'm glad." He held out a steaming mug. "Coffee, black with 1 sugar, right?" I took it, surprised. "How did you—" "I pay attention." His smile was warm as he leaned against the doorframe. "I've had breakfast prepared on the terrace if you're hungry, and there are clothes in the dressing room that should fit you. Take your time. I'll wait downstairs." Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving me staring after him. The casual domesticity of the moment, him bringing me coffee exactly as I liked it, breakfast waiting, felt strangely intimate, as if we'd been together for years instead of having just met. I showered in the luxurious bathroom, the multiple shower heads pulsing hot water from all directions. Afterward, I found a sundress in the dressing room, pale blue linen, simple yet elegant. It fit perfectly, as did the delicate sandals I discovered nearby. I wondered if this was coincidence, or if Nathaniel had somehow anticipated my size in advance. Given what I was beginning to understand about him, I suspected the latter. Downstairs, I followed the sound of soft music to the terrace where we'd dined the night before. In daylight, the view was even more spectacular. Azure waters stretching to the horizon, the cliffs falling away to the private beach below, lush gardens cascading down the terraced hillside. Nathaniel stood at the stone balustrade, looking out at the ocean. He turned at the sound of my footsteps, and something in his expression as he took me in made my breath catch. Appreciation, yes, but something deeper, more possessive. "The dress suits you," he said, approaching to take my hand. He brought it to his lips, his eyes never leaving mine, "though I find myself preferring you in diamonds." His glance at the necklace I still wore made me self-conscious. I should have taken it off before sleeping. No. I like seeing it on you. His thumb traced circles on my palm. I like the idea of you wearing something I gave you while you sleep. The simple statement carried an undercurrent of possession that should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a thrill down my spine. This man, powerful, dangerous, commanding, wanted me to wear his gift, to carry a piece of him with me even in sleep. Breakfast was laid out on a table beneath a pergola draped with wisteria. Fresh fruit, pastries still warm from the oven, eggs prepared 3 different ways, and a carafe of freshly squeezed orange juice alongside the coffee. It was a spread worthy of a luxury hotel, yet we were the only ones there to enjoy it. You must think I'm trying to impress you, Nathaniel said, noting my expression as he held my chair. Aren't you? I countered, settling into the seat. His laugh was genuine, perhaps a little. Is it working? I allowed myself a small smile. Perhaps a little. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the ocean breeze ruffling the tablecloth. I was conscious of his eyes on me, watching as I savored the perfectly prepared food. What would you like to do today? He asked eventually. We could take the boat out, if you'd like to see the coastline from the water. Or there's a lovely town about 30 minutes from here with excellent shopping, or... His smile turned mischievous. We could just stay here. The villa has many amenities. I set down my coffee cup, reality intruding on the dreamlike quality of the morning. I should actually get back to the city. I have the evening shift at Eloise's. Call in sick. I blinked at his casual suggestion. I can't just call in sick because I want to spend the day on a boat. Why not? He seemed genuinely puzzled. Surely you've earned a day off. That's not how it works for most people, Nathaniel. I need that job. I have rent to pay, bills. I could take care of all of that for you. He said it casually, as if offering to pick up a check for lunch. You wouldn't need to worry about money again. The offer hung in the air between us, tempting and dangerous. I barely know you. You know the important parts. He reached across the table, taking my hand again. I'm not suggesting you quit your job today, Emma. Just that you allow yourself one day of pleasure without worry. Is that so terrible? Put that way. It was hard to refuse. And the truth was, I didn't want to leave this beautiful place, this bubble of luxury and attention where Nathaniel made me feel like the most important person in his world. One call, I conceded. His smile was triumphant as he handed me his phone. To my surprise, Chef Bernard didn't argue when I called in sick. In fact, he was almost obsequious, assuring me it was no problem at all and to take all the time I needed. I handed the phone back to Nathaniel, suspicion growing. Did you speak to him? Before today, I mean. Nathaniel's expression gave nothing away. I may have mentioned that I'd appreciate his flexibility regarding your schedule. What does that mean? It means, he said, rising from his chair and coming around to pull me to my feet, that you are free to enjoy the day without worry. Now, about that boat. The boat turned out to be a sleek yacht, moored in a private dock below the villa. Franco and another security man I hadn't met accompanied us, maintaining a discreet distance as Nathaniel helped me aboard. Do you sail? He asked, leading me to the upper deck where a captain waited. I laughed. Do I look like someone who knows how to sail a yacht? You look like someone who could do anything she set her mind to. His hand rested possessively on my lower back. But today you can just relax. Antonio will handle everything. The day passed like a dream. We cruised along the coast, Nathaniel pointing out other properties he owned, secluded coves where he sometimes swam, a lighthouse he'd had restored just because he admired its architecture. He spoke of the coast with genuine love, his knowledge of its history and geography revealing a connection to this place that went beyond mere ownership. We stopped in a private cove for lunch, which was served on the deck by staff who seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Afterward, Nathaniel suggested swimming, producing a selection of swimwear from a cabinet that, like the dressing room at the villa, seemed prepared for any eventuality. Do you always keep women's swimsuits on your yacht? I teased, selecting a modest black one-piece. His eyes darkened slightly. As I told you last night, Emma, I've never brought anyone else here. This is new for me, too. The simple admission, delivered with unexpected vulnerability, caught me off guard. I retreated to a cabin to change, my mind spinning with implications. If he was telling the truth, and something in his expression made me believe he was, then whatever was happening between us was as unusual for him as it was for me. Swimming in the crystal-clear water, the sun warm on my skin, Nathaniel's strong arms occasionally brushing against mine as we floated together, I felt myself falling deeper under his spell. He was attentive, intelligent, genuinely interested in my thoughts and dreams. When I spoke of my ambition to own my own restaurant someday, he asked insightful questions about my vision, my preferred cuisine, how I would design the space. "You could do it now, you know," he said, as we lounged on the yacht's deck afterward, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. "Open your own place. There's a location in the West District that would be perfect. A former bistro with an excellent kitchen already installed. It's been vacant for months." I sat up, pushing my damp hair from my face. "How do you know about that?" "I own the building." He said it casually, his eyes half closed against the sun. "You own half the city," I muttered. He chuckled. "Not quite half. A significant portion, though." He reached out, his fingers tracing a drop of water down my arm. "The space could be yours. Renovated however you like, ready to open within a month." The offer was so tempting that for a moment I couldn't breathe. My own restaurant. My dream, suddenly within reach. But reality quickly reasserted itself. I can't afford to lease a space in the West District, let alone renovate and staff a restaurant. "I'm not talking about you leasing it." His eyes opened fully now, focused on mine with that intense gaze that seemed to see right through me. "I'm talking about giving it to you." I stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because I can." He sat up, moving closer until his face was inches from mine. "Because I want to see you succeed. Because you have extraordinary talent that's being wasted at Eloise's." His hand came up to cup my cheek. "Because I want to see you smile the way you're smiling right now at the mere thought of it." My heart raced. No one had ever believed in me like this. Offered me something so perfectly aligned with my dreams. It was overwhelming and suspicious. "What would you want in return?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His thumb brushed over my bottom lip. "Just you, Emma. Your time, your attention, your trust." "My trust," I repeated, searching his face. "That's a lot to ask from someone in your position." Understanding flickered in his eyes. He knew exactly what I was asking. "I would never hurt you, Emma. Never betray your trust. What I do, who I am, that part of my life would never touch you. Can you really promise that?" Instead of answering, he leaned forward and kissed me. Unlike our first kiss on the beach, this one held nothing back. His lips claimed mine with passionate intensity, his hand sliding into my hair to hold me in place as his mouth moved over mine. I responded with equal fervor, my arms wrapping around his neck, my body arching toward his. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "I can promise to protect you," he said, his voice rough with desire. "With everything I have, with my life if necessary." The vehemence in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it sent a thrill of dark pleasure through me. This powerful, dangerous man was offering me not just material things, a restaurant, financial security, but his protection, his focus, his devotion. Was that what I saw in his eyes? "I don't need your protection," I said, trying to maintain some semblance of independence despite the way my body still hummed from his kiss. His smile held no humor. "Everyone needs protection in this world, Emma. You just haven't realized it yet." We returned to the villa as the sun was setting, casting golden light across the cliffs. Despite my protests that I needed to return to the city for work the next day, Nathaniel convinced me to stay for dinner. "One more meal," he'd said, his fingers entwined with mine. "Then I'll have you driven back tonight if that's what you truly want." I agreed, telling myself it was the promise of another exquisite meal rather than the reluctance to leave his side that swayed me. While I showered and changed into a simple black dress I found in the seemingly endless dressing room, Nathaniel took a business call. I could hear the low murmur of his voice from the bedroom, his tone different from when he spoke to me. Harder, more commanding, a reminder of who he really was outside this romantic bubble we'd created. Dinner was served in a different location this time, a more intimate setting in a glass-walled room that jutted out over the cliff edge, giving the impression of dining suspended above the sea. Candles again. Soft music. White roses. Nathaniel waiting for me with that now familiar look of appreciation and hunger. The conversation flowed as easily as the wine, but there was an undercurrent of tension between us now, a sense of decisions pending. I hadn't given him an answer about the restaurant, and he hadn't pressed, but the offer hung between us, tantalizing and complicated. "Come back to the city with me tonight," I said impulsively as dessert was served. "See my world for a change." Surprise flickered across his face. "Your apartment?" I nodded. "It's small and nothing special, but it's mine. I want you to see it. Really see it. Not just the quick impression you got yesterday." He considered this, his head tilting slightly. "You want me to understand where you come from?" "Yes." I reached across the table, taking his hand in a reversal of our usual dynamic. "If whatever this is between us is going to continue, you should know me. The real me, not just who I am when surrounded by all this." I gestured at the luxury enveloping us. Something softened in his expression. "I'd like that." After dinner, while arrangements were being made for our return to the city, I wandered onto the terrace for one last look at the moonlit ocean. The night was clear, stars scattered across the velvet sky, the sea a dark, shifting presence below. I sensed rather than heard Nathaniel join me. His arm slipped around my waist from behind, pulling me back against his chest. I leaned into him, allowing myself to enjoy the solid warmth of him, the sense of security his embrace provided. "Thank you," I said softly. "For what?" "For this weekend. For showing me all of this." I gestured at the magnificent villa, the stunning view. "It's been like living in a dream." His lips brushed my temple. "It doesn't have to end." I turned in his arms to face him, placing my palms against his chest. "Reality is waiting for us in the city. My job. Your business. We can't stay in this bubble forever." "No," he agreed, his hands settling on my hips. "But we can create new bubbles, moments like this. Spaces where it's just us." His eyes searched mine. "If that's what you want." "What about what you want?" I countered. "You're offering me so much, Nathaniel. A restaurant, protection, these incredible experiences. What do you get out of this arrangement?" A shadow crossed his face. "Is that how you see it? An arrangement?" "I don't know what to call it," I admitted. "We barely know each other." "I know enough." His hands tightened on my hips, drawing me closer. "I know you're unlike anyone I've ever met. I know you challenge me, surprise me, make me want to be different." "Different how?" He hesitated, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "Better, perhaps. More worthy of someone like you." The admission stunned me. This man, powerful, wealthy, commanding, thought he needed to be worthy of me? Before I could respond, one of his security men appeared at the terrace entrance. "The cars are ready, sir." Nathaniel nodded, his expression closing off slightly. "We'll be right there." The drive back to the city was mostly silent, but not uncomfortably so. Nathaniel sat close beside me in the Bentley, his hand resting possessively on my thigh. Occasionally he would receive texts, his expression hardening momentarily before returning his attention to me. The outside world was already intruding on our idyll. When we reached my apartment building, Franco and the other security man did a sweep of the area before allowing Nathaniel to escort me inside. I felt self-conscious as we climbed the 3 flights of stairs, acutely aware of the peeling paint in the hallway, the flickering fluorescent light on the second-floor landing. My apartment, which had always seemed cozy rather than small to me, suddenly looked shabby through Nathaniel's eyes, or so I imagined. The second-hand furniture, the cramped kitchen, the view of the brick wall of the building next door rather than an ocean panorama. But if Nathaniel was judging, he showed no sign of it. He moved through my space with genuine interest, examining the cookbook collection on my shelves, the few family photos on my walls, the small herb garden struggling to survive on my kitchen windowsill. "It's very you," he said finally, turning to face me with a smile that seemed entirely sincere, warm, inviting, full of potential. Relief flooded me. "It's not much, but it's perfect," he interrupted, closing the distance between us. "Because it's yours." His kiss was gentle at first, but quickly deepened into something more urgent. My hands found their way under his jacket, feeling the warmth of him through his shirt. His own hands pulled me tight against him, one tangling in my hair, the other at the small of my back. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, a question hung silently between us. Stay or go? My bedroom door was visible from where we stood, the decision seemingly simple yet fraught with implications. Nathaniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it at first, his eyes still locked on mine, but when it buzzed again immediately, something like resignation crossed his face. "I need to check this," he said, his voice rough with restrained desire. I nodded, stepping back to give him privacy. He turned away, the phone to his ear, his voice dropping to that harder register I'd heard earlier. I moved to the kitchen, filling a glass with water, trying not to eavesdrop but catching fragments nonetheless. "When? Are you certain?" "No. Keep them there. I'll handle it personally. Yes. Tonight." When he turned back to me, his expression had changed completely. The warmth was gone, replaced by a cold fury that made me take an involuntary step back. "I have to go," he said, already moving toward the door. "Business that can't wait. Nathaniel, Franco will stay outside your door tonight," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "Don't leave the apartment. Keep everything locked. I'll call you when I can." Fear crept up my spine. "What's happening? Are you in trouble?" Something softened briefly in his expression as he returned to me, cupping my face in his hands. "Nothing for you to worry about. Just a situation that needs my personal attention." "You're scaring me," I admitted. He pressed a hard, quick kiss to my lips. "Don't be scared. Just be safe. For me." And then he was gone, the door closing firmly behind him. I stood in my small apartment, the ghost of his kiss still on my lips, wondering what I'd gotten myself into, and why, despite the obvious warning signs, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, knowing Franco was stationed outside my door like a sentinel? Knowing Nathaniel was out there somewhere, handling some mysterious situation that had transformed him from attentive suitor to cold-eyed enforcer in the span of a phone call. I paced my small apartment, checking the locks repeatedly, jumping at every noise from the street below. By dawn, exhaustion had settled deep in my bones, but still sleep wouldn't come. I made coffee, strong and bitter, and stood at my window watching the city slowly come alive. My phone remained silent. No call from Nathaniel, no explanation, no reassurance. Only the knowledge that a man I barely knew had deemed it necessary to post a guard at my door. When my alarm went off at 9 a.m., I was due at Eloise's for the lunch shift. I jumped, nearly dropping my third cup of coffee. The prospect of going to work, of pretending everything was normal after the surreal weekend I'd just experienced, seemed impossible. But staying alone in my apartment with my swirling thoughts seemed worse. I showered, dressed, and opened my door to find Franco still there, alert despite having stood watch all night. "Mr. Russo asked that you remain here today," he said, straightening as I appeared. "I have to work," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Mr. Russo was quite insistent. Mr. Russo doesn't control my life." The declaration felt hollow even as I said it. Hadn't I already allowed Nathaniel to rearrange my weekend, my thinking, my desires? "I need to go to work. You can come with me or stay here, but I'm leaving." Franco's expression didn't change, but I sensed his internal struggle. Finally, he nodded once. "I'll accompany you." The walk to Eloise's was tense, Franco scanning the street constantly, one hand inside his jacket where I suspected a weapon was holstered. My nerves, already frayed from the sleepless night, stretched tighter with each block. At the restaurant, he insisted on checking the premises before allowing me inside. Chef Bernard raised an eyebrow at the serious man in the dark suit, but said nothing. In fact, everyone seemed to be giving me a wide berth. Glances filled with curiosity and something like respect? Fear? Had they all somehow learned about my connection to Nathaniel Russo? The thought was unsettling. I threw myself into work, grateful for the mindless routine of prep, the familiar rhythm of the kitchen. Franco had taken a seat at the bar, his eyes constantly moving, his presence a stark reminder that whatever normal life I'd had before meeting Nathaniel was already slipping away. Halfway through my shift, Madeline appeared at my station, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "There's someone asking for you," she said in a low voice. "Table 12. My heart leapt, thinking it might be Nathaniel, but Franco's lack of reaction suggested otherwise. "Who is it?" "He wouldn't give his name, just said he was an old friend." She glanced toward the dining room nervously. "He looks important. Expensive suit, really intense eyes." I wiped my hands, untying my apron. "I'll be right back." Franco stood as I emerged from the kitchen, but I waved him back. "I'm just checking on a table. I'll be visible the whole time." Table 12 was in a corner, partially concealed by a decorative screen. As I approached, I saw a man sitting alone, his back to the wall, giving him a clear view of the entire restaurant. He was perhaps in his 50s, silver threading through his dark hair, his face handsome in a weathered way. His suit was indeed expensive, his demeanor that of someone accustomed to command. "You asked for me?" I said, stopping a cautious distance from the table. He looked up, and something in his gaze, calculating, assessing, reminded me jarringly of Nathaniel. "Ms. Wallace, please join me." "Do I know you?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "No, but I know quite a bit about you. I'm Vincent Caruso." The name meant nothing to me, but something in his tone suggested I should recognize it. I remained standing. "What do you want?" "To talk about Nathaniel Russo." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Please, this concerns your safety." At the mention of Nathaniel, I glanced toward Franco, who was watching us intently from the bar. He hadn't intervened, which meant either he didn't recognize this man as a threat, or he hadn't noticed who I was speaking with. Reluctantly, I sat. "What about Nathaniel?" Vincent leaned forward slightly. "You've become quite close to him in a very short time." "That's none of your business," I said, making to stand again. "Did you know," he continued as if I hadn't spoken, "that the last woman Nathaniel showed interest in ended up disappearing, vanished without a trace?" Ice spread through my veins. "You're lying." "Am I?" He removed a phone from his pocket, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a photo of a beautiful blonde woman, smiling at the camera. Valerie Klein. She was seeing Nathaniel for about 3 months. Then she started asking questions about his business, about certain inconsistencies she'd noticed. She disappeared 2 days later. I pushed the phone back toward him, my hand trembling slightly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Nathaniel Russo is not who you think he is." Vincent's voice dropped lower. "He's dangerous, Ms. Wallace, not just because of his business dealings, but because of what he's become. His father was ruthless but fair. Nathaniel," he shook his head, "he's unpredictable, volatile, and he's developed an unhealthy obsession with you." "How do you know anything about me?" I demanded, fear giving way to anger. "My business interests occasionally overlap with the Russo families. We've been competitors for many years." He produced a business card, sliding it across the table like he had the phone. "If you ever need help, if you ever feel unsafe, call this number, day or night." Before I could respond, I sensed movement beside the table. Franco had appeared, his expression hard as he stared down at Vincent. "Mr. Caruso," he said, his tone flat. Mr. Russo would consider this conversation unwelcome. Vincent smiled thinly, standing and buttoning his jacket. "I was just leaving." He turned to me, his expression grave. "Remember what I said, Ms. Wallace. The offer stands." After he left, Franco turned to me. "What did he want?" I hesitated, the business card clutched in my palm. "Just to talk." "About Mr. Russo." It wasn't a question. Franco's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Caruso and Mr. Russo are not friends, Emma. You would be wise to stay away from him." "I didn't seek him out," I said defensively. "He came here, and now he's gone." Franco's tone softened slightly. "For your own safety, you should tell Mr. Russo about this conversation when he returns. When, not if." The simple word provided a measure of reassurance I hadn't realized I needed. "When will that be?" "Soon." Franco checked his watch. "Are you finished with your shift?" "Mr. Russo asked that I bring you to the penthouse when you're done." "The penthouse?" "His residence in the city, I thought of my small apartment, the sleepless night I'd spent there, the lingering fear that had followed me all day. Then I thought of Vincent Caruso's warnings. The photo of the blonde woman, the implication that Nathaniel was somehow responsible for her disappearance. Who should I trust? The man who had swept into my life with gifts and promises, who made me feel seen and valued in a way no one ever had before? Or the stranger with grave warnings and talk of disappearances? "I'll need to go home first," I said finally. "To change clothes." Franco nodded. "Of course." At my apartment, I quickly packed an overnight bag, my mind still spinning with Vincent's accusations. I slipped his business card into my wallet, not sure why I was keeping it, but unable to throw it away. The drive to Nathaniel's penthouse took us to the most exclusive part of the city, a gleaming tower of glass and steel overlooking the river. Security was extensive, a guarded gate to the private parking area, keycard access to the elevator, cameras everywhere. Franco used a code to access the penthouse level, the elevator opening directly into a marble-floored foyer. "Mr. Russo will be back soon," Franco said, showing me into a massive living area with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the spectacular city view. "Make yourself comfortable. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry." After he left, I wandered through the space, taking in the sleek, modern decor. Unlike the coastal villa with its old-world charm, the penthouse was all clean lines and minimalist design. It felt like a showplace rather than a home. Impressive but impersonal. The only hint of the man who lived here came from a wall of bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, and a baby grand piano in one corner, sheet music open on the stand. I ran my fingers over the keys, wondering if Nathaniel played or if it was just for show. Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. I spun around to find Nathaniel standing in the doorway, watching me. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Still handsome, still commanding, but visibly worn. "You play?" I asked, my heart racing at the sight of him. "When I need to think." He crossed the room, stopping a few feet away as if uncertain of his welcome. "I'm sorry about last night." "You left without explanation," I said, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. "You put a guard at my door and disappeared. I had no choice." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I hadn't seen before, a crack in his usually perfect composure. "There was a situation that required my immediate attention. A dangerous situation." His expression tightened. "Yes. Dangerous enough that you thought I needed protection." I took a step toward him. "Nathaniel, what's going on? Who are you afraid of?" Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps, that I'd read the situation so accurately. "It's complicated. Try me," I challenged. "I met someone today. Vincent Caruso." The change in Nathaniel was instantaneous and chilling, his entire body tensed, his expression hardening into something I barely recognized. "What did he want?" "To warn me about you," I said honestly. "He told me a woman you were seeing disappeared. Valerie Klein." Nathaniel's laugh was bitter. "Of course he did. And did he mention that Valerie Klein was working for him? That she was planted in my organization to gather information? That she's very much alive and living quite comfortably on his payroll in Monaco?" I stared at him, uncertain what to believe. "He said you were dangerous, unstable. And what do you think?" Nathaniel closed the distance between us, his eyes searching mine. "Am I dangerous, Emma?" I thought of the security men who followed him everywhere, the urgent phone call that had transformed him, the way people deferred to him with a mixture of respect and fear. "Yes," I admitted, "I think you are." Something like pain crossed his features. "To my enemies, perhaps. Never to you." "Why not? What makes me different? You've known me less than a week, and yet I feel like I've been waiting for you my entire life." The simple declaration, spoken with such raw honesty, stole my breath. His hands came up to cup my face. "From the moment I saw you at that gala, standing alone in that corner, I knew you were different. Special." "You make it sound like fate," I whispered. "Maybe it was." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "I'm not a good man, Emma. My hands aren't clean. My business isn't legitimate. The power I wield has been built on choices many would find unforgivable." I should have pulled away. His confession, spoken so plainly, should have sent me running. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch. Vincent Caruso is my father's oldest enemy, Nathaniel continued. Their feud goes back decades. When my father died, Caruso thought I'd be easier to manipulate, to intimidate. When that failed, he resorted to more direct methods, like sending someone to spy on you, among other things. His jaw tightened. Last night, one of his men was caught trying to access sensitive information. Information that could have put many people at risk, including you. Me? Why would I be at risk? Nathaniel's hands slid down to my shoulders. Because you matter to me, and in my world, Emma, the things, the people that matter to me become targets. The reality of what he was saying sank in. My connection to him had already put me in danger, would always put me in danger. That's why Franco was at my door, I realized. Why you wanted me to stay in my apartment. Yes. His grip on my shoulders tightened slightly. Caruso's reach is extensive. I couldn't be certain you'd be safe. And now? Now the immediate threat has been neutralized. Something in his tone made me shiver, but Caruso remains a problem, one I'll deal with permanently, very soon. The implication was clear, and for the first time, I truly understood who Nathaniel Russo was, what he was capable of, what he had likely already done. I should go, I said, stepping back from his touch. This is too much, too fast. Pain flashed across his face, quickly masked. Of course, I understand, but as I turned to leave, to find my bag and call a taxi, a new thought struck me. Would I ever be truly safe now? I'd been seen with Nathaniel, danced with him, spent a weekend at his villa. Vincent Caruso already knew who I was, where I worked. The danger wouldn't disappear just because I walked away. I turned back to find Nathaniel watching me, his expression carefully neutral despite the tension radiating from him. If I stay, I said slowly. What does that mean? For us. Hope sparked in his eyes. Whatever you want it to mean. I told you before. I'm offering you everything, Emma. Not just material things, but myself. All of me. Even the parts that frighten me. He approached cautiously, as if afraid I might bolt. I will never let you see the darkest parts. I promise you that. They will never touch your life. Can you really keep that promise? I challenged. You just said being connected to you makes me a target, which is why I'll protect you with everything I have. He reached for my hand, his grip gentle but secure. I can give you a life most people only dream of, Emma. Safety, luxury, your own restaurant, anything you desire. All I ask in return is your trust, your loyalty. And if I wanted more, the question surprised even me. What if I wanted all of you, Nathaniel? Not just the charming man who brings me coffee in the morning or takes me sailing, but the man who makes those midnight business calls, the man who neutralizes threats. Something dangerous and thrilling flickered in his eyes. You don't know what you're asking for. Maybe not, I admitted, but I'm not naive. I know who you are, what your family does, and I'm still here. He studied me for a long moment, as if seeing me anew. Then, decision made, he pulled me against him, his kiss desperate and claiming. I responded with equal fervor, my arms winding around his neck, my body molding to his. When we broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. Stay with me tonight, he whispered. Let me show you what you mean to me. I knew I was standing at a crossroads. One path led back to my old life, safe, predictable, ordinary. The other led into Nathaniel's world of luxury and danger, power and passion. There would be no going back once I chose. Yes, I said, the decision suddenly, startlingly clear. I'll stay. The night that followed was a revelation. Nathaniel led me to his bedroom, a space as minimalist as the rest of the penthouse, but warmer somehow, with deep blues and grays creating a cocoon of luxury. His touch was both reverent and possessive as he undressed me, his eyes drinking in every inch of skin revealed. Beautiful, he murmured, the diamond necklace still at my throat, catching the light as he laid me on his bed. Perfect. What followed was a claiming, a seduction, a promise sealed in the most primal way. Nathaniel was as commanding in this as he was in all things, yet attentive to every response, every gasp and shudder. When we finally lay spent in each other's arms, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, I felt marked by him in ways both visible and invisible. "I love you," he whispered against my hair, the confession startling in its simplicity. "I think I've loved you from the moment I saw you." In the rational part of my mind, I knew it was too soon for such declarations. We'd known each other less than a week. And yet, something about it rang true, this connection that had formed so quickly, so intensely between us. "I think I might love you too," I admitted, my voice soft in the darkness. As crazy as that sounds, his arms tightened around me. Not crazy, fated. We fell asleep, tangled together, and for the first time since meeting him, I slept deeply, dreamlessly, with no fear or uncertainty to plague me. Morning brought sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and Nathaniel's warm body still wrapped around mine. I studied his sleeping face, younger in repose, the hard edges softened, the perpetual vigilance temporarily set aside. I slipped from the bed carefully, wrapping myself in his discarded shirt, and padded to the kitchen to make coffee. As I waited for it to brew, gazing out at the spectacular city view, I felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever came next, whatever complications awaited us, I knew I had made my choice. Nathaniel found me there, coming up behind me to wrap his arms around my waist, his lips finding the sensitive spot below my ear. "Good morning," he murmured. "Sleep well?" I leaned back against his chest. "Better than I have in years." "Good." He turned me to face him, his expression serious despite the intimacy of the moment. "We need to talk about what happens next." "Next?" I echoed, a flutter of uncertainty returning. "Caruso knows about you now," he said, his hands settling on my hips. "That makes staying in your apartment unsafe. I want you to move in here, with me." The suggestion, more of a command really, should have seemed premature, overwhelming. Yet after everything that had happened, it felt almost natural. "Nathaniel, we've known each other less than a week, and in that time, I've become more certain of what I want than I've ever been about anything." His gaze was intense, unwavering. "I want you in my life, Emma, permanently. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to give you everything you've ever dreamed of." "And what do you want in return?" I asked, echoing my question from the night before. "Really?" His smile held a hint of that dangerous edge I was humming to recognize, and despite myself, to crave your loyalty, your trust, your love. His hand came up to cup my face. "Give me those things, and I'll move heaven and earth for you." It should have sounded like hyperbole. Coming from any other man, it would have. But from Nathaniel Russo, with his empire built on power and fear, his resources seemingly limitless, it felt like a promise he could actually keep. "Okay," I said simply. Surprise flickered across his face. "Okay? I'll move in with you, on one condition." I placed my palm against his chest, feeling his heart beat steady and strong beneath my hand. "No secrets between us. If I'm going to be part of your life, all of it, then I need to know what I'm getting into." He studied me for a long moment, as if measuring my resolve. "Some things might be better for you not to know, Emma. That's not how this works," I insisted. "I'm not asking to be involved in your business, but I won't be kept in the dark either. Not about anything that could affect us, our safety, our future." Something like admiration glinted in his eyes. "You continue to surprise me." He took my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "No secrets, I promise." And in that moment, standing in his kitchen wrapped in his shirt, the diamond he'd given me still at my throat, I believed him. Whatever darkness lurked in Nathaniel Russo's world, whatever dangers we might face, we would face them together. "Now," he said, his expression lightening as he pulled me closer. "About that restaurant in the West District." 6 months later. "Are you ready?" Nathaniel asked, his hand warm at the small of my back as we stood outside the sleek glass doors. The sign above them read simply, "Emma's, in elegant script. I took a deep breath, smoothing the front of my chef's jacket. As I'll ever be. He turned me to face him, pride evident in his eyes. You've created something extraordinary here. Everyone is going to love it. I hope so. I glanced over his shoulder at the crowd gathering on the sidewalk. Food critics, local celebrities, influential bloggers, all waiting for the grand opening of the city's newest upscale restaurant. My restaurant. True to his word, Nathaniel had given me the building in the West District, along with a generous budget for renovations and staffing. But everything else, the menu, the decor, the concept, had been mine alone. He'd been supportive but never interfering, offering suggestions only when asked, connections only when needed. The last 6 months had been a whirlwind of activity and change. Moving into Nathaniel's penthouse, planning the restaurant, slowly learning more about his world and his business. There had been challenges. Vincent Caruso had made one more attempt to warn me before mysteriously deciding to retire to Italy, his business interests in the city rapidly diminishing. I never asked Nathaniel directly what had happened, and he never volunteered the information. Some secrets I had learned were better kept. Our relationship had deepened in ways I hadn't thought possible in such a short time. Nathaniel remained possessive, protective, sometimes controlling, but always devoted. The diamond necklace he'd first given me had been joined by other gifts. A ring with a stone that made the necklace look modest by comparison, a key to a house on the coast near his villa, a trust fund in my name that ensured I would never want for anything again. But more precious than any material gift was the way he had opened his life to me, introducing me to his sister Sophia and her family, sharing stories of his childhood, even allowing me glimpses of the business that had made his family powerful. He kept his promise. No secrets between us, even when the truth was difficult or dangerous. You're thinking too hard, Nathaniel said now, his thumb brushing my cheek. Tonight is for celebrating. I smiled up at him, the anxiety receding at his touch. You're right. Behind him, I could see Franco and the other security men positioned strategically around the entrance. Some things hadn't changed. Nathaniel's caution, his insistence on protection. But I had come to find comfort in their presence rather than fear. Ready to open the doors? Nathaniel asked. I nodded, squaring my shoulders. Ready. As he stepped aside to let me do the honors, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass doors. Confident, poised, draped in success and security. So different from the woman who had stood alone and invisible at that charity gala 6 months ago. Everyone had ignored me that night. Everyone except the most dangerous, most powerful man in the room, the man who had seen something in me worth claiming, worth protecting, worth loving, the man who now watched with pride and possession as I unlocked the doors to my dream, his hand never leaving my back, his presence a constant reminder of the choice I had made and would make again 1,000 times over. As the doors swung open and applause greeted us, Nathaniel leaned close, his lips brushing my ear. I told you everything would change if you let it. I turned to him, my smile matching his. For the better, I whispered back, before stepping forward to welcome the world into the life we had built together. A life balanced precariously between darkness and light, danger and security, power and love. A life that was, against all odds and expectations, perfectly ours.